Hey, so in this video, I wanted to talk about Maya and Blender as 3D software. There's been a lot of discussion online over the course of many years about whether or not Blender is better than Maya, or that Maya is better than Blender. And I just kind of wanted to touch on that because there's a lot of discourse that goes on. I think some of it useful, some of it can be a little silly. The Blender crowd, for example, seems to be quite vocal about how Maya is old and it's a bit of a dinosaur, and if you're actually serious about getting into 3D art these days, you basically just shouldn't use it anymore. That's a vocal minority, mind you, though. It's not everyone. I think most people are quite relaxed, but you do see it happen, and I see it in my own comment section as well. Occasionally you get the odd comment that Maya is better than Blender, or quite frequently that Blender is better than Maya. But realistically, it's a lot more nuanced than that, and both pieces of software have their advantages and disadvantages. A lot of people like to think that Blender is a sort of new kid on the block when it comes to 3D, and it's new and exciting. And it is, and it's constantly pushing boundaries and getting better with every update, and they update it very regularly. I think the latest version is 4.5. But Blender was actually originally created, or at least the first source file, in January 1994. Quite a while ago, before many of you were born, before I was born, that's for sure, by a couple of years. I was born in 96, by a guy called Ton Roosendaal, a Dutch art director. If I'm butchering that name, I'm sorry to any of our Dutch viewers. And then I think the software was officially actually launched in 1995. Not open source and free at the time, though, as we know it today. It wasn't actually until October 13th, 2002 that Blender did finally become open source and free for all to use. Since then, as we all know, Blender's gone on to become one of the most beloved pieces of 3D software out there, mainly just due to its ease of access and, of course, it being completely free, which is obviously a massive win in the world of software these days, where everything is either subscription-based or has a hefty one-time purchase. Looking at Adobe and Autodesk, for example, with their hefty subscription fees these days. A great example of how Blender has gone to new heights in recent years. Earlier in the year, the animated movie Flow was released, and as far as I know, entirely produced in Blender from a small team. And that's got to be a huge turning point in the history of the software and its use, and kind of a testament to how good it is. And Blender is often touted as being this piece of software that can kind of do it all, and that really goes to prove it there, because despite having a small team compared to Pixar, for example, they were still managed to knock it out of the park and produce something just visually and narratively stunning. Maya, on the other hand, was originally released as an animation product in 1995, so just ever so slightly, believe it or not, younger than Blender, and was originally developed rather closely with Disney feature animation team during the production of the animated movie Dinosaur in the year 2000, and was actually originally created for the long since disused IRIX, I think is how it's pronounced, operating system, one I hadn't heard of till I started looking into the software for this video. But that was eventually discontinued in 2005, and since then it's been used on Windows and Linux ever since. Obviously after that, it's since gone on to become one of the industry leaders for animation and modeling within the feature film and VFX industries, and the video game industry as well. It's used quite a lot for animation. I'm not sure how much modeling. I think perhaps more 3ds Max for that side, but that's not my strong suit. But basically, yeah, since the early 2000s, it's to the present day, it's basically been used to create every single CG film that you've seen since then. So here's the thing, both pieces of software seem perfectly capable of creating breathtaking works of art, so why is there so much negative discourse regarding one or the other, right? Of course, one of the biggest points about Maya is that it costs a fair chunk of change, right? Like even as an indie developer, you're still looking at a few $100s a year, which obviously in today's economy is a pretty hard pill to swallow for many of us, right? Meanwhile, you've got Blender, which is completely free and open source, and it's really kind of hard to argue with that, right, at that point. And Blender just seems to be getting better and better, while Maya... and I say this as a Maya user in my day-to-day, in my professional life and as a hobby as well, it seems to be somewhat in the past. It kind of often falls behind. A great example of this is it only just recently got viewport ray tracing for previewing, as an example, with the Arnold renderer that comes packaged with it. So why is Maya still used so much, right? One of the main reasons is that it's just been around in the industry for so long, right? Like we talked about earlier. There's countless different pipelines, scripts, and teams that have been written and work with it across the thousands of different VFX, feature animation, and gaming studios around the world. Another thing I really don't see mentioned often enough as well is that Autodesk is an enormous company. So all of these studios that use this software, Autodesk is capable of providing vital support to them during their productions when they need it. Whereas Blender, as a smaller team, might actually struggle to supply that. So I think that's one of the reasons why Blender isn't used as much, despite being a fantastic piece of software. But I think often this kind of conversation about one software being better or the other kind of comes from people that are much younger. They're just getting into 3D. They might not know as much. They haven't been around the block, so to speak. From my time working at Industrial Light and Magic, I know that the guys in the generalist department, for example, you had Blender knocking around. I had Blender on my computer. People used Blender from time to time, right, to do things. It's not like no one uses it in the industry. It's just not like the main tool for modeling or animation in the pipeline. But it is still used. It's not like there's a picture of Blender on the wall with a massive cross through it, and no one can use it. But who knows? Maybe as time goes on, Blender gains more and more popularity, which it seems to be doing, and there's no brakes on that journey. It could become more widely adopted officially. Who knows what the future holds, especially with AI and the explosion of all of that. Basically, the entire industry's up in the air, so who knows? Blender as well is often touted as, like I said earlier, a kind of do-it-all software. You can model, animate, render, composite, I think, as well, simulate explosions, fabric, liquids, and it does a really, really good job at this. The thing is as well, Maya is also capable of most of these, with the exception of compositing, as far as I know. You've got Bifrost built into Maya these days, which was used to render a lot of the water in the Avatar movies, and I'm not going to sit here and try and argue the visual fidelity of those movies. That they're outstanding. I remember going to see the original in IMAX. They did a fantastic job. So I think the issue with Maya is that it's just a bit clunky. Everything does work together, but it's a bit like trying to wrangle like multiple horses together with just a string. It can be a bit wild sometimes. It doesn't work particularly well. But when it works really well, and the people that know how to use it can obviously use it to the best of its ability. So realistically, the reality of it is that both pieces of software are actually great, right? Of course they have pros and cons, but at the end of the day, you can create fantastic works of art using both. There's absolutely no point in getting into arguments about which one is better, because it's just software at the end of the day, right? It doesn't have to be your personality. I certainly don't go around looking for art specifically made in Maya or Blender or Cinema 4D or anything else. If I go onto ArtStation or any other site for art sharing, right, I'm just looking at fun and creative work. That's it. I frankly don't care which tool you use, outside of just being curious, right, to know how you made it. And that could be Blender or it could be Maya. It really doesn't matter, and they're all great in their own right, and they all have an area where they excel. Like I said, you don't have to stake your whole identity or personality on a piece of software or fight about which one is better, right? That's just silly. At the end of the day, we're all artists. We like to create, and would you judge someone on what paintbrush they use or what pencil they use? Some of you might, but that's a bit elitist and it's a bit silly. And it's not about the tools. An experienced artist could draw something fantastic with a 20-cent pencil or something. Meanwhile, someone that's a complete beginner could take a very, very expensive set of pencils or paints and not get as far. So it's not so much about the tools. If you're a student or a hobbyist, I would say absolutely try both if you can. I know Maya has a startup cost, but if you are a student, I think if you provide your student ID to Autodesk, they will give you I think it used to be, I'm pretty sure it still is, a free year free license for students. So try out both, see which ones you like. I work professionally still in 3D, and I use both. I use Blender all the time. I use Blender today. I use it a lot for doing cloth sculpting, because the tools that it has are just fantastic. And sculpting in Maya, while reasonable, is nowhere near as good. It's just kind of crap, to be completely honest. But that's where it is, and the reality of it is just make stuff. Okay, share it if you want to, and enjoy the process, right? Focus on getting better at what you love, and realistically, the tools don't matter. They're both great at the end of the day, and there's no point in fighting about it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and keep making cool stuff.